Hello again, this is Nick Roach, and this little talk is going to be The Exorcist of Emotion. Now, I've made reference to this before, that dissolving emotion is a little bit like, or a lot like, how exorcising an evil spirit or entity is shown in the movies. And I thought finally it deserved its own little video. I know nothing about actual exorcisms, by the way. This is only the movies. Because sometimes these things, however simple they might seem in one way or to one person, they can seem complicated or difficult to get one's mind round. But when explained a different way, suddenly, I get it now, it makes sense. So that's what I'm going to be doing here. It's been quite a long time since I saw The Exorcist, the movie. But I've seen other movies since. And they usually involve a person who's believed to be possessed, lying on the bed, often is tied down to stop them escaping and running away. I'm not recommending that, by the way, but tied to the bed to stop them escaping and hurting anybody. And the priest, the exorcist, comes to the room. Now, it's usually quite a senior person in the church, someone who's been doing it a long time, and that's because they need someone who's quite strong of faith and self-knowledge and is not going to be distracted by whatever the entity inside the person says. What usually happens in the movies is the person on the bed will start off by saying something like, "What are you doing? Why am I tied down? What's the point? Why are you doing this? I'm not possessed. What's going on? Just untie me. This is cruel. This is not right." And when that doesn't work, when the person is possessed in the movie, the entity can then begin to show itself and become more aggressive. "Let me go. Untie me. You'll be sorry. I will hurt you. I know you." And begin to make threats. Then it might go all quiet again and start crying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it," and try to appeal to the exorcist, the priest, that way. Then, another trick they often show is when the entity, with its connection with the psychic world, start pulling up, drawing up memories or knowledge that it has that the priest wouldn't want anyone to know. The things the person's ashamed of, worried about, regrets, and get into those. The whole purpose is to get the exorcist to drop his mental connection and the strength within, get him to let go and start to go into the imagination. All the time in the movies, in The Exorcist and the exorcisms, the exorcist is reading a set words, a set holy phrase, prayer, whatever it is, trying to cast the thing out. But he has to stay very conscious and very aware. He can't have his headphones on, for example, just all relaxed, just reading them, It's got to be with strength and energy and belief and knowledge of what he's doing. And it's not just about faith. It's not faith. It's a knowledge, inner knowledge and connection. So he's reading it. He needs to get to the whole thing and keep going until the entity has left. After a little while, the person on the bed might seem to have been released, and the entity shouts and screams through the person, then they give up. Oh, all gone. To give the impression it's all over. Again, to try and get the priest to stop reading. Anything and everything to distract the priest, the exorcist, from his knowledge, from his task of staying with it and reading the particular words, staying conscious and reading it. Anything to distract him. And even when it seems to have gone, often it hasn't. He has to continue, and then it comes back, starts saying, I've gone now, it's not here anymore, untie me, you haven't got to read anymore, stop it. Just to distract him. Now the reason I'm saying all this, of course, is because when dealing with emotion in oneself, it is exactly the same. Okay, one isn't tied to a bed, and one isn't reading from the Bible, but the energies, the play, and the psychology is exactly the same. For example, a situation has happened, and first of all one looks consciously, what can I do? What can I do? Always, action one can take. And that will be the same if someone is possessed in the movies. First of all, the family has already tried something else. Are they just playing up? Are they having trouble at school? Are they on drugs? But when they've explored all the other options, and when one has explored all the other options, what can I do? Eventually, all that's left is this uncomfortable, the discomfort, the emotion, and the mind is starting to race, starting to go into the thing, thinking, worrying. And that is when the entity of the emotion has come to the surface. It's there. And one might have been in a bad mood, shouting at people, saying things they don't mean, banging about, slamming doors. That's the entity expressing itself. Someone tries to be nice to you and the emotion might attack them, or look for attention from other people just to make themselves feel better. That's the emotion. So as the person to exorcise the emotion, one then feels the discomfort and metaphorically ties the emotion down. One stops going into the imagination and thinking and imagining, and one just holds on to the body, the breathing first of all, to slow the mind down, feel the breathing, feel the body. Excuse me, I can hear, I'm not sure if it's a goose, what it is out there. Beware of the body, and that almost X marks the spot. This is here now. Aware of the body, aware of the breathing, and feel the disturbance. Feel it. It can be very agitated as it pushes one to go into the imagination, to let go of holding it and go into the thinking and the worrying about it, exactly as the entity in the Exorcist programs tries to get the priest to let go of his focus, his attention. Anything to distract him. And you'll find in yourself the emotion does just the same thing. Anything to distract you from holding on to the awareness. Because the same as in The Exorcist, the entity cannot survive when it's pinned down like that, and with the right energy and mindset, those words are being read when it's being cast out. It cannot survive. And when doing it with emotion, the emotion cannot survive in conscious awareness. The whole world, let's say, doesn't know this. Everybody gets upset and worried and frightened and excited and depressed and moody, and everyone goes, oh, it's normal, it's natural, that's okay. Well, it's not natural. It's natural the way we live. It's normal in the way that people do it. But to be your original state, that would not happen. It's a natural consequence of the attachment to being separate and to being an emotional being. The emotions consume and take over, but it's not necessary to live like that. Not necessary. But one must be very strong, because it takes a lot of energy when the emotion is very strong, trying to make one go into the imagination and think and worry, to hold the sense of awareness and just feel it squirming and resist the urge to go into the thinking. So I fly there, attracted by the lights. Otherwise you wouldn't see me. Some might say that bit would be an improvement, but there you go. So it's about being conscious, being aware, holding the energy, the sense of the emotion, feeling its need to distract you and take you into the imagination. And the thought process can be exactly like in the movies. What are you doing this for? This isn't going to work. There's no point. There's no entity here. There's no emotion here. Just give up. This won't work anyway. What are you doing? You can't do this. You're not strong enough. Look, you're thinking already. You've already lost. Give up. There's no point. Do it next time. There's no point going into it now. Let it go. No one else is doing this. Why are you doing it? And that can keep happening for all the time. And if it's a really strong problem, a strong emotional disturbance, it can be almost screaming this, the knowledge, if not in words, but the energy is almost screaming this, give up, give up, give up, stop, give up. And right up until the point, it's still screaming, give up. And suddenly it's, oh, where did that go? There's no feeling here now. And I might, in my imagination, remember the situation or the problem that was causing all the unhappiness, just a test. And yeah, it really has gone. Now sometimes, because one can only deal with bite-sized bits, one isn't given all the emotion at once. If the situation is a really difficult situation, then it can come back later. But that's only because there was too much at once. One hasn't failed. If it comes back again, that is a new bit of the emotion that is now showing itself. Like a separate evil entity, if one wants to call it that. If it has gone and you feel it and there's no disturbance and you're free of it, and then later on it comes up again, it's not the same bit of emotion, because each bit only needs to be faced once, then it's gone forever. So again, you haven't failed. It didn't not work. It worked fine. Afterwards you were free. But you might have to go through it again, which is probably good, because otherwise, because the emotion was already in there anyway, you just couldn't feel it. It would have taken another situation, another problem would happen in your life, and then you'd be emotional about that to bring it up. So you may as well get quite a lot, several bits out of the way with one situation. Saves there being more than one. But the two processes are very simple. Exorcising an evil spirit, as in the movies, and exorcising the emotion within oneself. The processes, the steps one goes through, the thought process, the energy, the end result, they're both the same. It's all just about being conscious, being aware, and not allowing the emotion to to take one's awareness off into the imagination, where you'll think about this and worry about that and relive that. That's what we're avoiding. Being conscious, being aware when the emotion comes up. One is actually, literally, dissolving the emotion, being made conscious. And when one talks of being in the moment, being conscious all the time, every time one does this when there's emotion and one dissolves it, that much less emotion is in the psyche, behind the scenes. So when you're not unhappy about something, and you're thinking in the mind, you're lost in your imagination just thinking, the reason you can't stop for very long, if you can't, is all the emotion hidden in the unconscious. All the stored emotion is still there. And that's why people have trouble staying in the moment. You can't do it through an act of will, because all that emotion behind the scenes is pushing all the time. But every time one does this, makes a bit of the emotion conscious, that's a little bit less emotion at the back, pushing the mind. So one becomes more aware, more conscious and less emotional every time one does this in an emotional situation. And depending on the amount of emotion you have, for me when I started this, I had an awful lot. It can be very tough and can take a long time. But every step is a step forward. You cannot go backwards. Every step is a step forward. And eventually, there's not enough emotion hidden at the back to take you away from the self of awareness, and you become conscious and aware. There's still emotion there, but there's far less of it. So one is more conscious, more aware, more in touch with the one being and everything being connected, and one becomes less involved in situations, less attached to things, because the power of the energy is far less. And the process continues. When you've been doing it long enough, you'll be conscious and aware, and a situation will happen and you're already there. You'll find you won't be lost in the imagination for a little while and then come back and reconnect. You'll already be there, and it'll be dissolving it right from the outset. And the thought process, this isn't working, has long since gone, because it knows there's no point. The energy knows, the thought process knows, can't talk you out of it. It has to just surrender. It has to run its course. You can't make it disappear like that. It has to come up, has to be exposed. You stay conscious and dissolve it. But in the first instance, it starts the very next time you become disturbed or emotional in any way. Try to reconnect with this point, with the breathing first, with the body, aware of your surroundings, and now you're here, in the room, or wherever you are, and feel the disturbance. Feel it. And resist the urge to go into the imagination. Just feel the connection, feel the being, and watch it, and hold it. And don't let it tell you you can't do it, that you're not strong enough, it's not working, there's no point. Just hold it. And after a period of time, depending on the situation, it might be seconds, minutes, it can be hours if it's a big thing. Just keep coming back. Eventually, there's no more emotion connected to it. There's no more disturbance. You can do it. One only has to know one can do it, and to try it, and you'll find it works. Thank you.